Hey everyone, it's Becky from Book Obsessed Becky coming at you with my 24 books I'm going to read in 2024. So you can see the stack here, and some of them are digital, so obviously they're not in this stack, but I figured I'd start out with the stack, not this stack, but the digital stack first. So I read through audio, I read on Kindle, and I read physical books. So on my Kindle at the moment, I have, and I'm going to use my phone to show you the pictures and talk about the blurbs. Oh, I guess before I start, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm a person that is seriously influenced by social media, like Instagram and BookTube, on buying books. And then I find myself in a situation where I have all kinds of books and all these hopes of reading them, and I never get around to reading them because there's so many that I just can't seem to keep up. So if you think like the show 2.5 Men and you think Alan going into the bookstore and having the meltdown because there's so many books he wants to read and there's just not enough time in life and he just freaks out, that's kind of like how I am with my books. So this year I'm going to try not to buy as many books and read a lot more of the books that I already own. So starting with my digital books, the first one I'm going to talk about is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. So I read The House on the Cerulean Sea by him a couple years ago, I think, and I absolutely loved the book. So I bought this one as soon as it came out, and it's been sitting on my Kindle forever. So basically, Goodreads here says, welcome to Sharon's Crossing. The tea is hot, the scones are fresh, and the dead are just passing through. When a reaper comes to collect Wallace from his own funeral, Wallace begins to suspect he might be dead. And when Hugo, the owner of a peculiar tea shop, promises to help him cross over, Wallace decides he's definitely dead. But even in death, he's not ready to abandon the life he barely has lived. So when Wallace is given a week to cross over, he sets about living a lifetime in only 7 days. So this book is supposed to be hilarious and haunting and kind. Under the Whispering Door is an uplifting story about a life spent at the office and a death spent building a home. So I've been holding off on reading this book because I loved The House on the Cerulean Sea so much. I was worried that this book wouldn't be as good. So fingers crossed that it is. The next one I have is another one that has gone onto my Kindle and I haven't picked up since the day I bought it. But I've heard a lot about it on YouTube and I'm very interested in it, and I've never read anything by this author. It's by Neil Gaiman and it's called The Ocean at the End of the Lane. This is what it looks like. I don't know much about this book. Actually, I don't really know anything about this book because I can't remember what intrigued me so much about picking it up to begin with, but I know it was something. So the Goodreads blurb says a middle-aged man returns to his childhood home to attend a funeral. Although the house he lived in is long gone, he's drawn to the farm at the end of the road, where when he was 7 he encountered a most remarkable girl, Letty, and her mom and grandmother. He hasn't thought about Letty in decades, and yet as he sits by the pond, a pond that she claimed was an ocean, behind the ramshackled old farmhouse, the unremembered past comes flooding back. And it is a past too strange, too frightening, too dangerous to have happened to anyone, let alone a small boy. A groundbreaking work, as delicate as a butterfly's wings and as menacing as a knife in the dark, The Ocean at the End of the Lane is told with a rare understanding of all that makes us human and shows the power of stories to reveal and shelter us from the darkness inside and out. Yes. Yep, that's definitely why I picked it up. It sounds so good and I love the cover. And I was gonna buy it in a bookstore, but I think it's a reader problem. I didn't like the covers that they had in the bookstore, so that's how come it ended up on Kindle. So the next one I'm reading, actually it is one that I'm reading right now, but the next one on my Kindle that I would like to get to is Tress and the Emerald Sea, and I've already gotten to it. I'm like, I don't know, like 100 pages into it already, and I am loving it. So this is a Brandon Sanderson. It was part of his Secret Works that came out last year, I think. So I'm not going to read the blurb to you, the Goodreads blurb, because I'm like 100 pages in, so I can kind of give you a quick blurb about what it is. So we're following Tress. Her name really isn't Tress, it's some weird name, but everybody calls her Tress because of her hair. She is a girl that washes windows in this palace, and I think it's for a duke, and she has befriended the duke's son Charlie, and she's kind of fallen in love with him. Well, Charlie ends up missing, and she decides to set out to save her true love. So it's kind of got like the Princess Bride vibes about it. And if you think about like the Princess Bride vibes, and then you think about like the never-ending story and how the grandfather, nope, it's not the grandfather. The grandfather's in the Princess Bride. How he's reading the story to his grandson who's sick. And then you also think about like, not the never-ending story, but like the series of unfortunate events where you have the narrator that comes in and kind of fills you in. It's kind of like reading that. I've never read a book like this before, but it's almost like Sanderson is sitting there telling you a story, and you're not just hearing like the characters talking, but you're hearing somebody talk about the characters. It's very interesting, and I really have been enjoying that, how he's written the book so far. Oh, the other one that I'm reading right now, which is also one on my list, it's a digital, is another one by Brandon Sanderson. It's book 2 in the Stormlight Archive series. This is what it looks like. And I can't really say much about this book because, again, it's book 2 and there's just a lot going on. So if you like high fantasy, lots of characters, complex characters, like characters that really have quite the backstory that you enjoy hearing about, and maybe the good guys coming out on top for once instead of the bad guys. It's kind of like that. I'm really enjoying this story, and it bounces between different people, and I'm listening to it on audio, and I really enjoy the cast. There's a few different people that play the different characters. I definitely recommend it. I really like the first one, but heads up, they're so freaking long. I think this one is like 48 hours of listening time or something, but still, I like it. Okay, the next one was a book that I had seen on, I'm looking it up on my phone, a book I had seen on Book of the Month, and I've seen people talk about it on their book channels, and I was going to get it from Book of the Month, but something won out. But since listening to people talk about it, I've decided I need this book in my life, so I got it on audio, and I'm trying to find it on Goodreads. Hold on one second. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I'm terrible with names, so hopefully I don't butcher it. It's The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Is that how you say it? I don't know tons about it, but it is about a retired pirate, and I think she's a mom. She's got this crew that she used to go out with. She was a pretty successful pirate, I guess, back in the day, and one of her friends, like, I think it's a grandmother, she has she's reached out to Amina about her granddaughter being taken, and she needs her to get her pirating crew back together because she needs her granddaughter saved, and she's willing to pay a huge chunk of money to make this happen. So of course Amina decides to take one last wild ride in her pirating adventures and track down this girl. I don't really know any more about it than that, but it sounds really good, and I know, like, I think I've heard Elliot talk about it. I've heard Lexi talk about it on her channel. I'll list the channels down below. probably not the exact video that I heard it in, but I'll definitely put the channels down below. The next one I heard about through April from Getting Hugga With It. And I love the way that she described this book, and it definitely perked my interest, so I got it on audio, and it's called Outlive. I'm getting up from the couch, sorry. And it's by Peter, and I have no idea how you say his last name, so I'm not even going to try, but he's a doctor, and it's The Science and Art of Longevity. So I guess it's a book where you're learning how to live each day so that when you become old, you're not unable to move. So like you're learning how to use your body, treat your body, feed your body, all of that, so that when the time comes that you're older, you won't have some of the difficulties that are typical of older people, like not being able to move well, or having trouble with your memory, or whatever it might be. And yeah, I am super interested in that. I'm always interested in ways of being healthier. So that's all of my digital, like Kindle and audiobooks I want to get to this year. And like I said, I'm cheating. I've already done, well, I'm already on 2 of them, Tress and the Radiance book. So these books here, I've got 2 stacks, softcover and hardcover. I also want to get to. So I will start with this softcover first. And this one is second in a series. It's called Marking Time by Elizabeth Jane Howard. There isn't much I can say about this because this is the second in the series, but we are following a rich family, the grandparents, their children, and then the grandchildren. And you move from each character and their point of view. We're moving into World War II. I don't even want to read the back of the book because I don't want to spoil anything for myself, but I very much enjoyed the first book in the series. So I'm sure I'm going to enjoy the second one. And I described the first book as being like, if you're a fan of Downton Abbey, and if you're kind of a fan of like the old-timey shows like the Waltons and that sort of thing, it's got those cozy vibes. So you're following rich people. Obviously the Waltons weren't rich, but like Downton Abbey, you're following rich people and their servants. So yeah, I very much enjoyed that book last year. We read it with, I read it with Lauren in the books as part of our Patreon last year. So of course I had to go out and get the second one. So that is Marking Time by Elizabeth Jane Howard. I probably should have moved the camera closer, but then I don't want to feel like a floating head on screen. So that's why I've pushed it back a little bit. Okay, so the next one I have here is Uprooted by Naomi Novik, and I read her Spinning Silver book, and I absolutely loved that book. Probably I should have read Uprooted first, so I'm hoping Uprooted is as good as Spinning Silver, but we shall see. But it does have this, so it's got that going for it. And like I said, I'm terrible with names, but I'm going to read you the back of the book, and hopefully I don't butcher the names too bad. So Agnieszka loves her valley home in a quiet village, but the corrupted wood stands on the border full of malevolent power, and its shadow lies over her life. Her people rely on the cold-driven wizard known only as the dragon to keep the wood's dark forces at bay, but he demands a terrible price for his assistance. Every 10 years, one young woman must be handed over to serve him without question. The next choosing is fast approaching, and Agnieszka knows everyone knows that the dragon will take Kasia, beautiful, graceful, brave Kasia, all the things Agnieszka isn't, and her dearest friend in the world, and there is no way to save her. But when the dragon comes, it's not Kasia he would choose. So yeah, I think that's really, like, it sounds really good. Up at the top it says, breathtaking, a tale that is both elegantly grand and earthly, humble, familiar as a grim fairy tale, yet fresh, original, and totally irresistible. Let's hope that's the case, because I really loved Spinning Silver. Okay, I can't really say too much about this book because this is the second book in the duology, and the first book had me blubbering so bad when I was reading it. My husband was next to me in bed and he's like, what are you reading? And I was crying. I was like, this is such a good book. And he's like, I can't imagine it's very good with all the snot flying the way it's going over there. I said, no, it's so beautiful. So then as soon as I finished that book, I rushed out and bought the second one. And I haven't picked it up since because the first one did me in so bad. It's by Kirsten Hanna, and I love Kirsten Hanna. I think she's fantastic. And it's Fly Away. The first book is called, what's it called? Firefly Lane. And I guess it's on Netflix as well, but I haven't watched that because first of all, I don't have Netflix, but second of all, I almost didn't survive the book. So I can't imagine what the show would do to me. But it's the second one in that little duology. Okay, so this was on my summer TBR, but I didn't get to it. And that would be the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, I think is his name. Yeah. So we're following a group of 70-something-year-olds living in a retirement village. They like to sit around, do jigsaw puzzles, talk crime, like true crime, unsolved mysteries kind of stuff. Well, one day somebody drops dead, and these four people, these four friends, decide that they're going to solve this crime. So that's what they do. They go through the book, and we're following them, trying to figure out who killed this developer in their complex. And I've heard it's a cozy mystery. I've heard it's funny. I guess it's a whole series. I'm excited to start it. So we'll see. Okay. This is going to be my year of dark academia. There's this book that I'm going to talk about and another book in the pile over here. I don't think I've really ever read dark academia. Maybe I have. I don't know. I can't remember. But it is The Atlas 6 by Olivie Blake. I don't really know anything about it, but according to Holly Black here, it says 6 of the most devious, talented, and flawed characters to ever find themselves in a magical library. This book is half mystery, half puzzle, and wholly a delight. And then it says here on the back, secrets, betrayal, seduction, power, welcome to the Alexandrian Society, where maybe not everybody is going to survive the year. I don't really know. I do know that this book has like illustrations in it as well, so I really like that, and I'm excited to read it. I hope it lives up to the hype in my mind. Okay, last year she made my top like books of 2023, and that's Pam Jenoff. I am going to pick up her book The Woman with the Blue Star. World War II time, and I don't know much about it. I don't really care. It's got this about it, and I love, I don't know if you'll be able to see like how these pages are. I love how that feels. I will read you the little blurb here on the inside. It says, 1942, Sadie is 18 and living with her parents amid the horrors of the Krakow, I think that's how you say it, ghetto during World War II. When the Nazis liquidate the ghetto, Sadie and her pregnant mother are forced to seek refuge in a perilous sewers beneath the city. One day, she looks up through the grate and sees a girl about her own age buying flowers. Ella is an affluent Polish girl living a life of relative ease with her stepmother, who has developed close alliances with the occupying Germans. Scorned by her friends and longing for her fiancé who's gone off to war, Ella wanders Krakow? I think that's right. I looked it up earlier this morning, but I can't remember. She wanders there restlessly. While on an errand in the market, she catches a glimpse of something moving beneath a grate in the street. Upon closer inspection, she realizes it's a girl hiding. Ella begins to aid Sadie with the two, and the two become close. But as the dangers of the war worsen, their lives are set on a collision course that will test them in the face of overwhelming odds. And it says that this book is inspired by true stories. And if it's anything like, I think it was the Sapphire line or the Sapphire Network, then this will probably top my favorite books of the year because I loved that book. Okay, so we're on to the hardcovers. This book I have been saving for spring because I'm such a seasonal reader, and I know it's totally nerdy, but I know I'm not the only one. And again, terrible with names. So this one is called The Inheritance of Orquidea Divina? I don't know. It's a beautiful cover. It says, going between Orquidea's past and her descendants' presence, this book is an enchanting novel about what we knowingly and unknowingly inherit from our ancestors, the ties that bind us, and reclaiming our powers. So I guess the matriarch or whatever in the family is getting ready to die, and she calls all of her family to her bedside and shares things with them and what they're going to inherit and all of that, and what they discover I guess is quite shocking. I'm not really sure. I've heard people talk about it. I've heard that they've loved it, and the cover is fantastic. And don't mind my janky nails. Like, I was like, I probably ought to get them cleaned up, but then I was like, you know what, if I wait around and do that to record, I'm not going to record. And who is this on a roll, like second video in the matter of a week? So score. Okay, next. Another book of the month book, and I've never read anything by this author. It's Jojo Moyes, and it is Someone Else's Shoes. So, book of the month says, an accidental gym bag swap jolts two women whose lives are on the rocks into realizing that it's time to seize their fates. I don't know anything more than that about it. But it says here, who are you when you are forced to walk in someone else's shoes? I've heard good things about this author. I have another one of her books on one of my bookshelves. I'm looking behind me to see if I can see it. Oh, it's called The Giver of Stars. I haven't read that one either. That's what I'm talking about. I buy so many books and I don't get to read them all. So that's what's going on this year. I'm reading more books. Jojo Moyes. Okay, this one I was thinking may be good in the fall. I wanted to read it last fall. But again, book buying, like new books in, takes over old books, that sort of thing. It was one of my book of the month books that I had chosen. It's a fantasy read. I think I talked about it in my summer TBR. Again, I didn't get to it. It says, oh, right. It's called The Change by Kirsten Miller. It says, when three women suddenly get spooky powers, they do what must be done. They solve crimes and exact revenge. I think that sounds fantastic. It says, a gloriously sharp and funny modern saga about three women who discover that midlife brings a whole new type of empowerment, putting them on a collision course with the evil that lurks in their wealthy beach town. That sounds like a perfect read for the fall. Okay, I seem to be scooting to the end of the couch here. Pretty soon I might just fall right off. We'll see. Okay, another book of the month book that I had gotten back in 2022 is by Rebecca Ross, and it's A River Enchanted. So I've really been getting into fantasy, so I'm very interested in diving into this one. It says, 10 years after being sent away to become a bard on the mainland, Jack is asked to come back home to Cadence, like the island or whatever he lived on. And apparently on this, I think it's an island, the girls are missing, like they're being taken and nobody knows where they're going. Well, his nemesis, who happens to also be the leader of this town or village or whatever, has called him back and believes that he is the only one that is going to be able to save these missing girls. So we'll see. Okay, so I watch Lydia, and sometimes she talks about books, sometimes she talks about yarn and knitting and crafting and all that. But she has been talking about, or she was talking about, like the Disney Twisted Tale type books. So I picked up Unbirthday because I love Alice in Wonderland, and the Mad Hatter is my absolute favorite character. But this one is about Alice. Alice is an 18-year-old girl now. She's not living in Wonderland. She's into photography. She spends her time taking pictures of her neighbors and her friends, and she does a self-portrait of herself. well, it's kind of repetitive, a self-portrait of herself. You know what I'm saying. So when she goes to develop her film, what she's seeing in the pictures aren't the neighbors that she took pictures of, but are people back in Wonderland. But they're not like the people that she had left behind. Like, there's something wrong with these people. Like, there's something wrong with the Queen of Hearts. There's something wrong with the Mad Hatter and all that, which really bothers her. And when she goes to develop her self-portrait, that really bothers her, because what she sees in the photo isn't herself, but a dark-haired girl who looks kind of banged up, I think, and is like begging Alice for help. That really like spooks her out. So the last paragraph on the inside flap says, returning to a place of nonsense from her childhood, Alice finds herself on a mission to stop the Queen of Hearts' mad military march across Wonderland, and to find her place in both worlds. But will she be able to do this before the end of time? I have another one of these books on my shelf over here somewhere. It's A Tale as Old as Time, which is the Beauty and the Beast one. But I am excited to get to this one and to see the Mad Hatter, because I love the Mad Hatter. Okay, so I loved this author's book that came out a couple of years ago. It was called The Jane Austen Society. Well, she's come out with a new one. Probably it's not that new now since I've gotten it, but nonetheless, I'm excited for it. And it is Bloomsbury Girls by Natalie Jenner, I believe is her name. Yes. So it says here, I've written little notes, so I won't read the whole blurb. It says Bloomsbury Books has been run by men for 100 years. And now it's 1950, and the three women that work there have some plans for the shop. And I guess we're following along and meeting these women in the book. The first one, her name is Evie, or Evie. She is one of the first women to receive a degree from Cambridge. She went for an academic position, but of course they took a man over her, so now she finds herself working in this bookstore, and she is on a path to remake and claim her future. The next one is Vivian. She is a single woman. Her fiance died in World War II, and she's got a lot of grievances in life, and one of them, the biggest one, has to do with the head of fiction. And then the third one that we're looking at is Grace. She is a mom of 2. She is working. Her husband came back from World War II, and he's a broken man. He had a mental breakdown. And now it says at the bottom here, in a world filled with dazzling characters, from Daphne du Maurier to Samuel Beckett, these three women with their complex web of relationships, goals, and dreams are all working to plot out a future that is richer and more rewarding than anything society will allow. I hope this book is as good as the Jane Austen Society. I know that wasn't a book for everybody, but I loved the coziness of it. Okay, my camera just cut out. So I had said that I really loved the Jane Austen Society. I loved the vibes from it, the coziness. I'm really hoping that Bloomsbury Girls has that same vibe. Okay, another book from my summer TBR. I had read The Hotel Nantucket over the summer, and I was going to pick up this one by the same author, by Elin Hilderbrand. It is The 5-Star Weekend. I never got around to it. I hope that didn't show up blurry. It says, quick blurb I wrote myself, says things aren't going so hot for Hollis, though it looks like she leads the perfect life. She hears about this thing called the 5-Star Weekend that happens back in like Nantucket. I think it's in the hotel that I read about in the last book, where you have your besties from different phases of your life all come together for this weekend. She decides she wants to do it. She wants to make some changes. She wants to have this weekend, reconnect, but things do not go as she was hoping that they would. It is not a Hallmark movie kind of situation. And like I said, it's not as she expects. And then this woman reaches out to her through a blog. Her name is Gigi. And this woman has all kinds of secrets. So needless to say, this is not the weekend anyone had planned. Yeah, I think it sounds really good. There's a stupid squirrel right there on my suet feeder hanging upside down. I don't know what to do about these squirrels. They drive me crazy. Okay, so I know not everybody is a Harry Potter fan, and certainly not everybody loves Snape, but he was my absolute favorite character in that whole series. And when I saw that Alan Rickman, or Snape, had his diaries published when he passed away, I was like, yes, please. I need them. This was on my summer TBR as well, and I didn't get to it. It is called Madly Deeply, The Diaries of Alan Rickman. I'm very excited. I was going to get it on digital, but I didn't want to miss out on like the artwork and the handwriting of his, like with the color and all that. I guess there's not much to say other than it's the Diary of Alan Rickman, and yes, please, I need to read it. It makes me so sad that he's passed away. Okay, so I said dark academia year, right? So this is the year I am going to pick up The Secret History by Donna Tart. I have not read this book. It is a chunker, for sure. This may have been on my summer TBR as well. I can't remember. But it says, under the influence of their charismatic classics professor, a group of clever, eccentric misfits at an elite school discover a way of thinking and living that is completely different from the humdrum existence of their contemporaries. So I was going to read this in the summer, and I remember why I decided not to. Again, I'm one of those seasonal type readers. I'm opening the book up to what I saw that made me decide not to read it. First line in the prologue says, the snow in the mountains was melting, and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation. Snow. That's why I didn't read it in the summer. Now it's winter time. There's snow outside. I might get to it this winter. If not, I will be getting to it in the fall, winter of this year. Secret History. This is another book I had on my summer TBR and didn't get to, and it's an Oprah Book Club pick, and it's another freaking chunker. Like, huge. It is The Covenant of Water. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the author's name. That's his name. This was actually on Barack Obama's books last year, like his favorite books of the year or something list. And Oprah loved it, so really, I don't need to know much more than that. But quick little blurb says, spanning from 1900 to 1977, The Covenant of Water is set in, oh gosh, it's another name, Kerala, I think that's how you say it, on the South India's coast. On South India's coast, it follows 3 generations of a family that suffers from a peculiar affliction. In every generation, at least one person dies by drowning. But in Kerala, there's no water. Nope. There's no water. I misread. Water's everywhere. So, yeah, it sounds good. But beyond that, the part, and I've read this out before, but the part that really gets me is this part. And it says, she's 12 years old and she'll be married in the morning. I need to know what happens to this girl. I need to know. And this book also has maps and this like pencil drawing, which is kind of fantastic. Covenant of Water. I think this is going to be like a chunky book kind of year because I've shown a lot of them or talked about a lot of them so far. Okay, the last book before I get to the one graphic novel I have on here has been on my shelf It's been on my shelf for a hot minute. I keep wanting to pick it up, then I get distracted again. I've never read a book by this author. It's V.E. Schwab. This book made the rounds when it came out, and I am very excited to read it. It is called The Invisible Life of Addie, LaRue. Okay, so it is a life of immortality. It's not all it's cracked up to be. When no one remembers who you are, that is, until someone does. It says that it's a story that it's a story that you won't forget. For someone damned to be forgettable, Addie LaRue is the most delightfully unforgettable character, and her story is the most joyous of unlikely immortality. Neil Gaiman said that on the back here. Naomi Novik says The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue will enchant readers as deeply as its heroines bargain. You will find yourself in quick turns both aching with heartbreak and gleefully crowing at the truly delicious wicked cleverness in store for this character. I don't really need to know any more than that. I just know I need to read it, and I need to read it this year. That's why it's on this list. Okay, this last book, move this table out of the way. This last book was a complete, buy due to Lauren in the books. She was talking about it with COVID and I think when the first lockdowns happened, and yeah, I was like, I need this book. I had ordered it first from Amazon. It came and it was all banged up and destroyed. So I sent it back and I ordered it, I had them send a new order of it, and I haven't picked it up. It's been on my shelves and I don't know why I haven't picked it up, but I haven't picked it up. Maybe it's because it looks like fallish to me because of the colors. I don't know. It might have even been on my summer TBR. Either way, it is Glasstown, and it is about the Bronte siblings. Okay, so it says it's a historical fiction graphic novel that starts out with the two eldest Bronte sisters' deaths, leaving behind Charlotte, Branwell, Emily, and Anne to care for one another. They find comfort in a world they create called Glasstown. Within it, they experience love, friendship, war, triumph, and heartbreak. And I think it sounds wonderful. And I'm opening it up to show you some of the pictures. And I think the artwork is fantastic. And I love some of their works anyways. In real life, some of the books that they've written. So I'm excited to get to this one. So yeah, that's it. That's my 24 in 2024. It's quite a list. I've stumbled through it. There's some dark academia. There's definitely some fantasy, mystery, historical fiction, nonfiction. There might be some romance, some LGBTQ plus representation. I get the whole deal here about horror. I'm just not a horror person. So here's to hoping I get these books read this year and that I can control myself with my buying when it comes to books so that I don't have a huge stack of books that I haven't read yet. So yeah, is everybody else doing the 24 in 2024? What are you picking? What do you want to read? What are you most excited about? Have you read any of these? Let me know down below. And until next time, happy reading, everybody, and stay cozy. Bye.